Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are tackling, well, a huge figure. We've got a massive stack of sources, biographical, historical, all focused on understanding the life, the career, and importantly, the legacy of a man whose energy just completely changed the game for wildlife conservation on TV.
Yeah, huge is right. We're talking about the Crocodile Hunter.
The one and only.
Stephen Robert Irwin, born 62, passed away far too young in 2006. And he was so much more than just a TV host, wasn't he? An Australian zookeeper, a naturalist, largely self-taught, really a dedicated conservationist.
And maybe the most infectious wildlife educator ever.
Absolutely. I mean, you just look at the sheer volume of material out there. The global reaction when he died, the scientific honors, the foundations he set up, it points to this immense, almost unbelievable impact he had worldwide.
He really was a phenomenon, bridging that gap somehow between this high-octane, almost daredevil entertainment and genuine environmental education. So our mission today is to dive deep, but efficiently. We want to unpack where that unique energy came from, trace his path from managing a small family park to global stardom.
And look at the substance, right? The actual conservation work, not just the show.
Exactly. Plus, we have to navigate the controversies he faced, because there were definitely some major ones, and ultimately try and understand the legacy he left behind, which is quite physical in many ways.
Okay, let's get into it. A truly unique life to unpack.
So to understand that explosive energy, you really have to go back to the beginning, the foundation.
Definitely. He was born in Upper Ferntree Gully, Victoria, back in 1962. But the real starting point, the place that shaped him, was when the family moved to Queensland's Sunshine Coast in 1970. His parents were just fundamental to who he became.
Yeah, their backgrounds are so telling, aren't they? You see where that mix of sort of practical skill and deep passion came from? His dad, Bob Irwin.
Right, he was a plumber by trade, but also an amateur herpetologist, really keen on reptiles, collecting them.
And his mom, Lynn, she was a maternity nurse, but focused those skills on wildlife rehabilitation.
So you had this household with, like, practical skills, medical care, and cold-blooded animals everywhere.
It sounds like an environment just completely saturated with wildlife. It wasn't a weekend hobby, it was just life.
Exactly,
Yeah.
which created this intense natural affinity for reptiles right from the start. We're talking handling venomous snakes, lizards. Young Steve was out there collecting them. He was in it daily.
Some of the stories from his childhood in these sources are just wild. They really paint a picture. What's the one that really stands out for you?
Oh, the 6th birthday present. It's just incredible. Most kids get a bike, maybe some toys. He gets a 12-foot scrub python.
12 feet at age 6.
Yeah, and that wasn't just, here's a pet snake. This was a serious animal, required skill, respect. It tells you everything about the high-stakes environment he grew up in. Nature was big, close, and demanded attention.
And then there's that other famous story about transporting a snake on a bus.
Oh, yeah, the red-bellied black snake, which is, a venomous species.
Not exactly a garter snake.
Not at all. And the story goes he transported it on a public bus inside the driver's esky.
An esky? Like a cooler for sandwiches and drinks?
Pretty much, yeah. For our listeners outside Australia, an esky is just that, a portable cooler. The fact that a venomous snake was just casually riding along in the driver's lunchbox, it shows this level of comfort, this normalization of danger that's just, well, almost unthinkable for most people.
That's hands-on training like nothing else. He literally grew up inside the family business, the Queensland Reptile and Fauna Park, which his parents started.
That was his real classroom, handling crocodiles by age 9.
Tumbling them.
And wrestling his first one that same year. Always under his dad's close supervision, mind you. Bob Irwin made sure it was about skill and respect, not just fooling around. But still, incredibly high-stakes learning.
And that kind of practical skill, that deep understanding, must have been invaluable pretty quickly for actual conservation work.
Yeah, it absolutely was. It led him straight into volunteering for Queensland's East Coast Crocodile Management Program.
Which sounds pretty serious.
Oh, it was. This was government work, dealing with large saltwater crocs considered a public risk. Capturing them, relocating them, sometimes bringing them back to the family park. Steve himself captured over 100 crocodiles for that program.
Over 100. Capturing one large saltwater croc takes immense skill and bravery. 100 that builds a unique kind of expertise.
Exactly. That deep, practical, hands-on mastery was the bedrock. It meant he was ready. He took over managing the family park in 1991.
And started to put his own stamp on it.
Yeah, began transforming it, modernizing it, and eventually, in 1998, renaming it
Australia Zoo.
Australia Zoo,
Right.
the base camp for everything that came next.
Okay, so running the family zoo is one thing. Becoming a household name across the globe, that's a whole different level. And the pivot point, the moment it all changed, it sounds like something out of a movie script. Happened on his honeymoon.
It really does. It's the perfect origin story. 1992. He marries Terry Raines, an American naturalist from Oregon. Shared passion, totally clicked.
And instead of Hawaii or somewhere.
Nope. Their honeymoon. Trapping crocodiles in the wild, doing what they loved, and crucially, they had a TV producer, John Stainton, filming it all.
Just filming the honeymoon adventure.
That raw footage, just them doing their thing, trapping crocs, that became the very first episode of The Crocodile Hunter.
Incredible. And once that hit the airwaves, Australia first in 96, then North America in 97, things just exploded, didn't
Yeah,
it?
massive explosion. It became this instant cultural thing, broadcast in over 130 countries, reaching an audience estimated around 500 million people.
500 million people.
Think about that. 500 million people watching this Aussie bloke in khaki shorts wrestling crocs and yelling, "Crikey!" It just cut through everything because it was so different from those quiet, traditional nature docs.
Let's break down that brand, though. The sources pinpoint key elements. It wasn't just the animals. It was the whole package, the persona.
The persona was crucial. It was all about impact. First, that style, exuberant and enthusiastic, as the sources put it. You couldn't ignore him. So much energy.
Almost overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah, then the way he spoke that broad Australian accent. Very distinctive. Third, the look, the signature khaki shorts. Instantly recognizable.
Became iconic.
Totally. And finally, the catchphrase, "Crikey." It just became his global calling card. Put all that together, and you had this incredibly marketable identity that just smashed through.
What's really fascinating, though, and something we should probably linger on, is that this showmanship, this style, that, let's be honest, sometimes drew criticism later.
Yeah.
It actually got a nod from the absolute master of the opposite style.
Right. Sir David Attenborough, the king of calm, observational nature filmmaking. He openly praised Irwin.
What did he say exactly?
Attenborough said Irwin introduced huge numbers of people to the natural world. He specifically said Stip taught them how wonderful and exciting it was, and called him a born communicator.
Why is that praise from Attenborough so significant here?
Because Attenborough represents that traditional approach. Observe respectfully, keep your distance, calm narration. Irwin was the polar opposite. Up close, high action, shouting.
Yeah.
So Attenborough's endorsement basically validated Irwin's method. Not necessarily as the only way, but as an effective way to educate and inspire. It showed that even though the delivery was radically different, the goal, getting people to care about nature, was being achieved on a massive scale. It sort of legitimized the showman as a serious educator, in a way.
And the success of that main show just led to more, right? The whole media empire started expanding.
Absolutely. The Crocodile Hunter spawned spin-offs, Croc Files aimed at kids, The Crocodile Hunter Diaries, more behind the scenes at the zoo, new breed vets. His presence on Animal Planet was huge.
They even had a whole week dedicated to him, didn't they?
Yeah, Croc Week, every June from 2000 to 2007. An entire week of programming built around him and Australia Zoo. Shows the massive influence he had on that channel.
And it's quite poignant, reading the sources, that even near the end, he was already planning for the future, for his family to carry on the message.
He was definitely thinking ahead. Early 2006, just months before he died, he announced on The Tonight Show that Discovery Kids was developing a show for his daughter, Bindi.
Wow.
That plan eventually became Bindi the Jungle Girl, realized after his death, sadly. But it shows the long-term vision. His image, his archives, they're still central to the family's work today. The mission was always meant to continue.
So his fame wasn't just confined to the small screen. He moved into movies, big commercial deals.
Yeah.
But you mentioned he always tied it back to the mission.
Yeah, that seems to be a consistent thread. These ventures weren't just about being famous. They were strategic tools to support the conservation work.
Let's look at the film side first. He starred in one main feature film. It wasn't just a small documentary, was it?
No, The Crocodile Hunter. Collision Course in 2002 was a proper feature film, budget around $12 million, which wasn't insignificant then.
And it did well.
Yeah, it grossed $33 million worldwide, showed the brand had real box office pull. And it even won Best Family Feature Film at the Young Artist Awards, hitting that core family audience he aimed for.
He also seemed to have a sense of humor about his own image, popping up in cameos.
Definitely. Like in Dr. Dolittle 2 in 2011, There's a funny bit where an alligator warns Dr. Dolittle that Irwin's nearby and all the animals get nervous.
Huh. Playing on that idea that he's always about to jump out and wrestle something.
Exactly. It showed he could laugh at himself. He also did the voice for Trev, an elephant seal, in the animated movie Happy Feet. That came out just after he died, in late 2006, and the film was dedicated to him.
Okay, now let's switch to the commercial side. Lots of celebrities do endorsements, but you said Irwin had a specific rule about the money.
This is really key, I think. It speaks to his priorities. He did these high-profile campaigns, but apparently every cent he earned from them went directly into his wildlife fund.
Really? Not into his own pocket?
According to the sources, no. It was always about funding the conservation mission, growing the zoo, buying land, not about personal enrichment.
That's quite remarkable. What were some of the big campaigns?
Well, there was a memorable FedEx commercial back in 2000. It played humorously on the risk of him getting bitten by a snake using his dangerous image for a global brand.
Right.
Then a massive one in Australia in 2003 was for the Gone.
The famous train journey, Adelaide to Darwin.
That's the one. His involvement was huge for promoting Australian tourism, so much so that they actually named one of the big Pacific National locomotives the Steve Irwin.
Wow. So his name was literally traveling across the country on a train.
Pretty much. And perhaps one of the most impactful campaigns was with the Australian Quarantine and Inspection Service, AQIS.
Right.
He fronted their campaign with the slogan, "Quarantine matters, don't muck with it," using his credibility as a wildlife expert to push a critical public service message about biosecurity. It shows his influence went right into government campaigns.
And all that money, all that attention, it fueled the growth back at Australia Zoo.
Absolutely. Under his leadership, it grew from just the zoo into this whole enterprise, TV production, conservation foundations. The physical zoo expanded massively too. The Animal Planet Crocoseum.
That huge stadium for the croc shows.
Yeah. Plus the Rainforest Aviary, the Tiger Temple. He was building a major international facility, all funded by that global fame.
But maybe one of the most telling stories about the man himself, not the performer, happened far away from the zoo during a shoot in Mexico.
Yes. The incident in Baja California, November 2003, it really shows his character, I think. He and his crew were filming sea lions for a documentary.
Yeah, kind of standard stuff for him.
Right. But then they picked up a radio call. 2 scuba divers were missing in the area. Rough waters.
What did he do? He's got a film crew, a schedule.
Immediately stopped filming. Just stopped. Turned the whole operation, his boat, his crew, into a search and rescue mission. No hesitation. His crew divers joined the search. He used his boat to patrol. And critically, he used his own satellite phone system, pretty advanced tech back then, to call in a rescue plane. He leveraged everything he had.
Was it successful?
Partially and tragically. On the second day, one of the divers, Scott Jones, was found alive by kayakers, stranded on a tiny rock ledge on a cliff. Irwin and his crew managed to get to him and bring him safely back to the boat.
That's incredible.
It is. But sadly, the other diver was found deceased later. Still, the fact that a major TV shoot was instantly put on hold, all resources thrown into helping strangers in trouble, it says a lot about his priorities. Helping people, helping wildlife, it seems like it was just instinct for him.
So let's focus now on that core drive.
Yeah.
Because for Steve Irwin, the fame, the showmanship, it always seemed to serve a deeper purpose. He called himself a wildlife warrior, right?
Consistently. And his mission statement was crystal clear: to save the world's endangered species. That was the goal behind everything.
And his whole philosophy of how to do that was pretty revolutionary for its time.
It really was. You know, traditional environmentalism could often be quite preachy, or focused on doom and gloom, scary statistics.
Right, trying to shock people into action.
Irwin just flipped that completely. His approach was all about sharing his absolute boundless excitement for nature. He wanted people to see conservation as wonderful and exciting.
The idea being, if you make people fall in love with it, they'll want to protect it. Simple, but powerful.
Exactly. Make it thrilling, make it accessible.
So how did that philosophy translate into actual concrete actions beyond the zoo, beyond the TV shows?
Well, a major part was practical land acquisition, which is, often the most direct and effective way to conserve habitat. The sources say he systematically bought up large tracts of land, particularly in Australia.
And these weren't just small plots.
No, significant areas. And he explicitly described managing them like national parks. The goal was permanent protection, creating safe havens for wildlife.
And this wasn't just an Australian focus, was it? He looked internationally, too.
Correct. His land purchases extended to places like Vanuatu, Fiji, even the United States. It shows a really global vision for habitat protection, using the money generated by his international fame to secure wilderness in different ecosystems around the world. This practical side is sometimes overshadowed by the TV persona, but it was fundamental.
And to manage all this, to make sure the work would last, he set up formal structures, foundations.
Yes, several key ones. The main one started as the Steve Irwin Conservation Foundation, but was later renamed, very fittingly, Wildlife Warriors Worldwide.
Wildlife Warriors. Fits perfectly.
Doesn't it? That focused on global conservation, research, emergency wildlife response. He also co-founded International Crocodile Rescue, obviously leveraging his very specific expertise there.
And some foundations were quite personal, too.
Yes. After his mother, Lynn, died tragically in a car accident in 2000, he established the Lynn Irwin Memorial Fund. That focused on specific wildlife care initiatives, things she was passionate about. And he also set up the Ironbark Station Wildlife Rehabilitation Facility. So you see this broad approach. Land acquisition, specialized rescue, rehabilitation. It was a comprehensive strategy.
It's interesting to circle back to inspirations. We talked about Attenborough praising him, but who did Irwin himself look up to?
According to Terry Irwin, his wife, Sir David Attenborough, was a massive inspiration for Steve.
Really? So the admiration went both ways.
Apparently so. Terry emphasized that Steve's core motivation was always conservation, and he deeply respected Attenborough's lifelong commitment and impact. It kind of positions Irwin as seeing himself in that lineage of conservationists, just choosing a radically different, louder megaphone to get the message out to a modern mass audience. He was translating that Attenborough-style passion into the language of high-energy TV.
Okay, so we've got this picture of immense success, global reach, genuine conservation work. But with that level of fame and his particular high-risk style, controversy was maybe inevitable.
Yeah, it seems almost unavoidable, especially in the media landscape of the early 2000s. His approach was so different, it was bound to attract scrutiny and sometimes outright criticism.
And the biggest flashpoint, the one that really caused a global media storm, was the incident with his baby son and a crocodile in 2004.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through what happened there?
Right. This became known as the crocodile incident. He was filming at Australia Zoo, and he was hand-feeding Murray, a big saltwater croc about 3.8 meters, so pretty large.
Okay. Standard Irwin footage, you might think.
Except, while doing this, he was holding his son, Robert, who was only 1 month old at the time.
1 month old, near a large saltwater crocodile.
Exactly. The footage just looked incredibly dangerous. The baby seemed extremely close to the croc's jaws, and when that footage hit the news, well, it exploded.
The reaction was pretty strong, wasn't it? People made comparisons to other celebrities.
Instantly. The comparison that kept coming up was Michael Jackson dangling his baby over a balcony. Critics, child welfare groups, animal rights activists, the general public, many were outraged. They called it reckless, irresponsible. Some even used terms like child abuse. It was a perfect storm of parental anxiety and media frenzy.
How did Irwin respond? Because from his perspective, based on his life experience, he probably saw it very differently.
He did. He went on NBC's Today Show fairly quickly. He apologized for the concern he'd caused, but he staunchly defended the action itself.
He didn't think it was dangerous.
He and Terry both argued that because of his lifelong experience handling crocs since age 9, understanding their behavior intimately, he knew Murray perfectly, and that Robert was never in any actual danger. He even released footage from different angles, arguing it showed more distance than the initial clip suggested.
And Terry compared it to?
She famously said Robert was in no more danger than a child being taught to swim by a parent. It was all about his unique expertise and control, in their view.
So was this fundamental clash, his highly specialized personal assessment of risk versus the public's general view of extreme danger near an infant?
Absolutely. And while the authorities investigated and ultimately decided not to press charges...
Right. No charges were filed.
No. But the incident did have lasting consequences. It was so high profile, it actually led the Queensland government to change the law. They brought in new regulations specifically banning children and also untrained adults from entering crocodile enclosures. A direct legislative response to that one event.
There were other times his filming practices came under scrutiny too, right?
Yeah.
Like in Antarctica.
Yes, briefly. In June 2004, there were allegations related to filming the Crocodile Hunter episode Icebreaker. Claims were made that his crew might have gotten too close and disturbed wildlife, whales, seals, penguins.
Delicate ecosystem down there.
Very. It raised questions about following wildlife interaction guidelines. But again, after an investigation by the Australian environmental authorities, the matter was closed. No charges. Seemed like there wasn't enough evidence of significant disturbance.
His fame also seemed to pull him into the political arena occasionally, which can be tricky territory for a conservationist.
It can be. He always maintained he was a conservationist first and didn't take political sides. But he did cause a stir when he publicly praised Australia's Prime Minister at the time, John Howard.
What did he say?
He described Howard as the greatest leader in the world, which, was a pretty strong praise.
And that didn't go down well with everyone.
No. Critics felt someone with his public profile should stay neutral or at least avoid such effusive endorsements of a political leader. It sparked debate about his judgment in that area.
And there was also some criticism, particularly from the Sydney Morning Herald, about potentially confusing messages on broader environmental issues, like land management in Australia.
Yeah, this was an interesting point they raised. He was talking about things like land degradation and erosion, major issues in Australia. But he made a comment suggesting that Australia has evolved to handle those big animals, referring to cattle.
Which environmental scientists might debate quite strongly.
Exactly. The Herald pointed out the apparent contradiction. Here he was, a passionate conservationist arguing against eating certain native animals for tourism, yet seeming to downplay the well-documented environmental impact of large-scale cattle farming. They felt his message became a bit confusing there, highlighting the challenge of being both a populist entertainer and a nuanced scientific communicator on complex issues.
So despite the controversies, his influence was just undeniable, which made his sudden death in 2006 all the more shocking. September 4th. It happened while he was doing what he did best, filming wildlife.
It was just incredibly tragic. The details are quite stark. He was filming a new documentary series, Ocean's Deadliest, up near Port Douglas in Queensland at a place called Bat Reef.
And the cause was completely unexpected given his history.
Utterly. He died after being pierced in the chest by the barb of a short-tailed stingray.
A stingray, not a croc, not a venomous snake.
No, an animal generally considered quite docile unless threatened directly. The barb, which is on the tail, somehow struck his chest, penetrated his thoracic wall, and caused massive internal trauma. He died very quickly.
It's just such a cruel irony. Decades working closely with apex predators.
And then this happens. Stingray fatalities are incredibly rare worldwide. What makes this even more, I suppose, shocking and unique is that his death is thought to be the only stingray fatality ever actually captured on film.
Wow. The cameras were rolling.
Yes, that fact just amplified the tragedy, the feeling of disbelief. How could this happen to him, the expert handler, through such an unlikely event?
Given his global fame, the reaction must have been instantaneous.
Oh, immediate and profound. Shock, grief. It went way beyond just entertainment news. Governments, including Australia's Prime Minister John Howard, issued statements. Major news outlets globally led with it. Nonprofits he worked with expressed deep sorrow. It was a genuine global outpouring.
And the farewells reflected that huge public connection.
They did. There is a private funeral first, just family and close friends, at Australia Zoo on September 9th. But the public need to grieve and pay tribute was immense.
So they held a public memorial.
Yes, on September 30th at the Crocodile in Australia Zoo, the place he built. 5,500 seats packed, and it was broadcast live around the world. Estimates suggest over 300 million people watched that service.
300 million viewers. That just underlines the sheer scale of his impact, doesn't it? His life was cut short, tragically, but his name, his legacy, seems truly embedded now in institutions, conservation efforts, even in the names of species.
That's a really powerful form of legacy, the scientific naming. It directly honors his passion for discovery. Back in 1997, he and his father both actually discovered a new species of freshwater turtle in Queensland.
Yeah, they discovered it themselves.
Yes. And the herpetologist John Cann officially named it Elsea irwini Irwin's turtle, a direct recognition of his contribution to finding it.
And that kind of recognition continued even after his death.
It did. It shows his enduring cultural impact, influencing science itself. In 2009, a newly discovered species of land snail was named Crikey Steve Irwin.
Incorporating the catchphrase.
Exactly. And it went beyond Earth, too. Asteroid 57567 was officially named Crikey.
An asteroid named Crikey.
Yeah. Having species on Earth and a body in space bearing his name or catchphrase, it really speaks to how far his influence reached.
And beyond the scientific, there was significant official recognition, too, both during his life and posthumously.
Definitely. While alive, he got the Centenary Medal from the Australian government in 2001 that was for service to global conservation and Australian tourism, two key pillars of his work.
Right.
In 2004, he was named Tourism Export of the Year and also Queensland Australian of the Year. And after his death, the honors kept coming, interestingly crossing boundaries between entertainment and, well, academia.
That's an important distinction. It wasn't just about celebrity.
No. He was inducted into the Logie Hall of Fame Australia's TV Awards in 2007. But perhaps more significantly, that same year he was awarded an adjunct professorship at the University of Queensland.
A professorship?
An adjunct one, yes, in the School of Integrative Biology. It was a serious academic acknowledgement of his expertise, his impact on conservation education, even if self-taught. And then, cementing the global icon status, he got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 2018.
And the family, of course, carries the torch.
Absolutely. Terry, Bindi, and Robert continue to run Australia Zoo, ensuring that physical hub endures. And his image, that khaki brand, is still used by the Queensland government to promote tourism. His legacy has ongoing economic value, too.
There are also these living tributes, ways people are encouraged to remember him and continue his work.
Yes, the most prominent is probably Steve Irwin Day, celebrated every year on November 15th.
What happens on Steve Irwin Day?
It's positioned as a day of action, not just remembrance. People are encouraged to wear khaki, raise funds for wildlife warriors worldwide. It's all about actively continuing his mission.
His name also got attached to the more direct action side of conservation.
That's right. The Sea Shepherd Conservation Society, known for their sometimes confrontational anti-whaling campaigns, after his death, they renamed one of their main vessels, the MV Robert Hunter, as the MY Steve Irwin.
Wow. Did the family support that, given Sea Shepherd's methods can be controversial?
Terry Irwin fully endorsed it. She was quoted saying, if Steve were alive, he'd be aboard with them. It strongly linked his legacy to that passionate boots-on-the-ground or waves conservation movement.
And even locally, right near the zoo, his impact was marked immediately.
Yes, Glasshouse Mountains Road, the main road running right past Australia Zoo, was renamed Steve Irwin Way very soon after he died, a permanent local landmark acknowledging his significance.
And finally, just to show how enduring his fame is, his name still pops up in national conversations in Australia, even very recently.
It really does. A striking example was in 2022, after Queen Elizabeth II passed away. As Australia was discussing the future of its currency, whether King Charles III should be on the notes.
Yeah. There were actual petitions, public suggestions gaining traction that Steve Irwin should be featured on Australian currency instead.
Steve Irwin on the money.
The suggestion itself, whether serious or symbolic, just perfectly illustrates his standing. He's moved beyond celebrity into this realm of national icon status for many Australians, considered worthy of that ultimate symbolic recognition. So when you pull all these threads together, that incredibly intense hands-on upbringing, the absolute explosion onto the global media scene, the practical conservation buying up land, the foundations, the controversies, the enduring legacy, it paints a picture of someone who was, well, a really crucial bridge figure.
A bridge between what?
Between the sometimes inaccessible world of science and conservation and mainstream popular culture. He took something that could be seen as dry or depressing and just injected it with this raw, infectious energy. He made millions, hundreds of millions, feel that conservation was vital, yes, but also wonderful and exciting. He made protecting wildlife seem thrilling. So for you, the listener who joined us for this deep dive, hopefully, you now have a really solid grasp of how that unique childhood fueled a global movement. How his personality navigated and sometimes courted public fascination and controversy. And how his legacy isn't just memories or TV reruns, but actual physical land, species named in his honor, and ongoing work by his family.
That's an extraordinary story. And amidst all that global fame, the crikeys, the wrestling crocs, Irwin himself often said, according to the sources, that the most important thing, how he really wanted to be remembered, was simply as a good father.
That's quite grounding, isn't it? After everything we've discussed, the huge scale of his public life, the conservation impact.
Yeah.
So it leaves you with a question, maybe. We've explored the wildlife warrior side, the massive global impact. And we know how much being a good father meant to him personally. Which role, or perhaps how those two roles intertwine, truly defines his most significant, his most enduring legacy? Something to think about. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.